Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Madan Gopal, you look so distinguished today.
Thank you, Maharaj. I'm wearing my very distinguished hoodie.
Very good. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Mr. Pandit. Hare Krishna. Krishna, Krishna. Get all my things lined up here. And Purushartha Prabhu is here. And if you turn on your video, we'll get to see your auspicious face. Hey, there we are.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Haribol, obeisances.
Present my obeisances. Nice to see you.
Your good self. Hare Krishna Shriman.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Joy. Krishna, Krishna. Just sent word to Mukhya, asking her if she'd spread the word around for the Prabhupada Tributes book. We've extended the 10th, so all of Prabhupada's disciples who are willing can contribute. Krishna, Krishna. And Prabeen, Hare Krishna, from Pune.
It looks like our orchestra isn't here today, so maybe I'll request Mahesh Pandit Prabhu to lead. Mahesh Pandit
Sure.
Prabhu can lead about 4 minutes or so.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Prasyata Dishatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Gaur Hari. Nitai Gauranga, Gaur Hari. Gaura Gaura, Gaur Hari. Gaura Gaura, Gaur Hari. Gaura 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 Hari. Jai Sachinandana, Jai Sachinandana, Jai Sachinandana Gaura Hari. Patita Pavana Gaura Hari. Patita Pavana Gaura Hari. Gaura 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 Hari. Gaura 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 Hari. Yugavatari Gaura Hari. Kali Yuga Pavana Gaura Hari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Hari Bol.
Hari Hari Bol.
Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai Om Vishnupad Puraman Supri Braj Kacharya Stotra Satashi Shimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai Nama Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sakaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Sham Kundu Radha Kundigiri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadip Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamana Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande. Hari Gaur.
Thank you very much, Maharaj, and welcome to all the devotees for this evening's Bhagavatam Sangha with His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami. So if you'd like to ask any questions, make any comments, kindly use the raise your hand feature. This way we can call on you in the order that your hand is raised. That'll make it easier for us to manage. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschacha Deshatarane Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vashari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. My obeisances to Purushartha Prabhu and my respects and welcome to everyone. If you have a name like 175408 or iPhone, you might want to consider, unless you really want to be anonymous, you might want to consider putting your pointer over your name and changing it to your actual name, just in the interests of friendliness. We had finished text 5, where Parikshit Maharaj had firmly decided to sit on the bank of the Ganga, concentrating his mind on Krishna, putting aside all other ideas of self-realization, and just understanding devotional service to Krishna to be the greatest thing. Krishnangri sevam abhimanyamana, surpassing everything else. So now, Yavai, the such tree, Tulasi Vimrishya, Krishnangri Rain Vabhyati Kambu Netri, Punati Lokan Upayatra Sheshan, Kastam Naseveta, Mrishamana. Now the Ganges on which he's decided to sit is being described. That river. Yavai Lasat Shri Tulasi Vermisha. That water is mixed with the tulsi from the lotus feet of the Lord, Krishnangri. Krishnangri Renu, the dust of Krishna's lotus feet. So that may be the water of the Ganga, which was formed by the piercing of the covering of the universe by the foot of Lord Vamadev, or more to the point, it may be the Jamuna, which is right near the king's door in Hastinapur, and which is still more sanctified. And Prabhupada quotes Jiva Goswami, or cites Jiva Goswami, that there's no difference between the water of the Ganga and the Jamuna, but when the water of the Ganges is sanctified 100 times, it is called the Jamuna. Krishnangri, and Krishna, from the beginning of his pastimes, he while his father was carrying him across the river, the Lord fell in the water and was, of course, Vasudeva is panic-stricken, but Krishna is enjoying and blessing the Ganga. So that water, Punati, is purifying Lokan for all the worlds. Ubhayatra, from the top to the bottom or inside out, everything is purified by the touch of the Ganga or Jamuna. Sheshan, Shah Ishan, Isha, Lord Shiva, is also purified. He keeps the Ganga Jal, or the river Ganga, on his head. Kastam Naseveta, Mrishamana. So who else, or who is it that wouldn't worship that river? Mrishamana, especially a person who's about to die. So the king takes shelter of, this is it. Now I have my kingdom, I have my wife, I have my family, I have my responsibilities, but now everything is about to be taken away. So where's my real shelter? My real shelter is, first of all, at the bank of the Ganges or the Jamuna, where the Lord, which is flowing with the Tulsi from the Lord's lotus feet, which is purifying, which is in one sense not different from the Lord because it's associated with the Lord. Tadhama Vrindavan. Araja Bhagavan Brajesha Tanaya. Tadhama Vrindavan. The worshipable personality of Godhead is Krishna, and his abode is equally worshipable. So the Jamuna is also part of Krishna's pastimes, Krishna's abode. So it's also as purifying as Krishna. Well, there the king takes shelter. Any comments or questions here? Okay. Iti. In this way, iti vyavachchidya sapandaveya prayopave shang prati vishnu padyam tadho mukundangrim ananya bhava munivrato mukta samasta sangha. So the king, Vyavachchidya, having firmly decided in this way, Pandaveya, the descendant of the Pandavas, Praya Upavishta, was now prepared to fast until death. This is a system of leaving that means embracing death. The modern idea is somehow or other to flee death till the last moment, to struggle against death till the very last moment, to go to the hospital and let the doctors try this, let the doctors try that, let them do this, let them do that. Somehow or other, save me, save me. And in this way, even their material fortune, so much of it is spent in the last days. There's some calculation how much of medical expenses, what percentage goes to the last couple of years, and especially the last couple of months. It's disproportionate because people are desperate to stay, to fight against death, no matter what. But here, the king, although we read earlier that he could have tried to counteract the curse, he could have prayed to Krishna, please, please don't let me die. But here he embraces death. Jatasvihi dhruvo mrityur, death is certain for everyone. So if death has now come, let me accept it. And instead of trying to run away or trying to hold on till the last moment, let me hold on to Krishna's lotus feet. Let me take shelter of the Ganga. Let me take shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna. Ananya bhava. Ananya bhava means without any other idea, without karma, without gyan, without anything else, just surrendering to the lotus feet of Krishna. Mukundangrim, Dadho, giving himself up to the lotus feet of Krishna. So Munivrata, he accepted the vow of a sage. The sages, this is what they do. They're naturally detached from material engagements. They're always engaged in spiritual pursuits as their main business of life. But a king is busy with state administration, with so many material involvements. But now Munivrata, the king, being properly trained, knew that now is the time for me to accept the same engagement as the Munis, to dedicate myself to going back to Godhead, to fix my mind on the lotus feet of Krishna. Munivrata and Mukta Samasta Sangha, becoming freed from all material association. The Prabhupada, yes, let's see. Prabhupada has an interesting comment here to meditate on, to be free from all material association means to cease completely from committing any further sins. Just as a matter of course in our occupations, in our dealings, in our interactions, we unwillingly even commit sinful activities. The example was Parikshit Maharaj himself. Somehow or other, he offended a sage. Although he was by nature sinless, somehow he offended this sage. And we all have experienced that we almost inevitably commit offenses, commit sins, and what to do. But here, to be free from all material association means to completely cease completely from committing any further sins. So he's withdrawing from all material activities, withdrawing from material engagements, and he's in that way ceasing from committing further sins. And to meditate upon the lotus feet of the Lord means to become free from the effects of previous sins. So I'm not going to commit further sins because I'm going to withdraw from material affairs, and I'm going to get free from past sins by taking shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, or meditating on the lotus feet of the Lord. The conditions of the material world are so made that one has to commit sins willingly or unwillingly, as Parikshit Maharaj did. But the principle is that one should not willingly commit any sin in life and should constantly remember the lotus feet of the Lord without deviation. Ananyabhava, without deviation, without any other objective. Only in such a mood will the Lord help the devotee make regular progress toward the path of liberation and thus attain the lotus feet of the Lord. Even if there are accidental sins committed by the devotee, the Lord saves the surrendered soul from all sins. And Prabhupada quotes a verse from the 11th canto that says essentially that. Subhada mulam bhajata priyasya, for one who's very dear to the Lord. Chaitanya bhavasya hari paresha. Vikarma yachchot patitam katan chit dhunoti. Sarvam Priti Sannavishta. Okay, let's see what that verse actually says. One who has thus given up all other engagements and taken full shelter at the lotus feet of Hari Krishna is very dear to the Lord. Indeed, if such a surrendered soul accidentally commits some sinful activity, then Krishna, who's seated in everyone's heart, at once takes away the reactions to such sins. There's also I saw something interesting here. My copy of this volume of Srimad Bhagavatam was published in 1978, or last published in 1978, 360,000 copies, I think, were published by then. No more. 1978, 500,000 copies of this book were published in 1978. But there's an error. In my copy, this is where the purport ends, with this quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam. But it's since been discovered, it seems, that there's more to the purport. If you look in Prabhupada's original Srimad Bhagavatam, published in Delhi, there's more. So I don't know if your book has it, but here it is. The devotee of the Lord never commits sins willingly, but as above mentioned, the material world is a place where one has to commit sins, even unwillingly. The finest way to save oneself from the reactions to such accidental sins is to constantly remember the lotus feet of the Lord. But one who deliberately commits sins on the strength of the Lord's assurance that he will save his devotee from sinful reactions commits the greatest of sins, and there's no deliverance for such a person, even by constantly remembering the lotus feet of the Lord. Such a willful offender has no chance of being freed from the clutches of fruitive action. Any comments or questions up to this point?
Yes, Maharaj, there's a question or comment from Tulsi Rani. If Tulsi Rani, there, you can go ahead, please.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
We very much appreciated your wonderful classes. I'm wondering, you were mentioning about how if one comes to the point of some extreme event where they're facing death, they shouldn't try to hold on and make all these arrangements. They should just surrender to the situation. I'm wondering if that would be the same recommendation for someone who's like younger, that has some, like if someone's like in their 20s or 30s or something like that and has cancer, like should they fight it and think, oh, I could offer Krishna more in this lifetime, or should they just, you know?
Well, that's always a question, even for an older person. Do I just, give up at the first sign, or do I see if there's a chance of staying? We saw that Prabhupada didn't immediately give up. He went to Haridwar or Rishikesh, thought, let me recover my health here. And then at a certain point, he said, all right. And he went to Vrindavan, as he said, to die. So there's a point at which one decides, do I want to live, or do I want to accept death? And it's not just a question of age, because you may be 20 and be old, because you may only have a week left. We try to see Krishna's indications. Is it one of those situations where if I try for it, as Prabhupada used to say, I can live on and continue to serve? Or is it that Krishna's sending me my notice and now's the time to give up? Or one may say, let me give up. That is, let me depend on Krishna. And as he desires, I may live, I may die. That was also Prabhupada's attitude, that although he'd come to Vrindavan to die, but it's up to Krishna finally. It's finally up to Krishna. But it's not that a young person, a very nice example, there's a devotee of Radhanath Maharaj, disciple of Radhanath Maharaj, whose name, if I believe, was Sri Dhamma, who was a young fellow. He was married not too much earlier. He had a little baby child. And when I happened to check into Bhaktivedanta Hospital one year, they said that Sri Dhamma's in one of the rooms and he's dying. It had suddenly been discovered that he had cancer of the spine, and he had, like hardly any time left, a week, 2 weeks. And they said, but he's blissful. So are you willing to see him? So of course I was willing to see him, went there, and it was true. He was in blissful consciousness. He was saying that, Krishna is so kind. He sent me a bona fide spiritual master. He sent me the association of devotees. And he was, visibly in a what would you say, a blissful mood, a very pure and blissful mood. And, you know, materialists would be thinking, why me? And what about my baby? What about my wife? What about? And I don't want to die. I'm still young. And he just accepted that Krishna is so kind that he gave me all these wonderful advantages, and now he's taking me. So, and then actually the story goes on. Krishna made all sorts of arrangements. Brijbasis accidentally happened to come to the hospital bringing garlands from Vrindavan. You know, so many things happened. It was just amazingly auspicious. But I think that's the answer to your question, that it's not just a question of age. It's trying to see, what is Krishna indicating, what is Krishna telling me, and let me be ready to accept whatever Krishna wants to do. If what is that? Rake Krishna Marike, Mari Krishna Rake. Krishna wants to kill me, he can kill me. If he wants me to live, all right, I'll go on with that. Is that all right?
Thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj. We have a question from Guru Das Prabhu. Guru Das Prabhu, go ahead. Just unmute you.
I wanted to add, the materialistic way of death is cowardly. They just don't want to die because they have no, everything that they value is here in this world, and you know, who knows what may come next. And there's fear, there's attachment, and there's this almost irrational desperation. Let me live, let me live, let me live. Let me stay. Let me spend all my money. Let me suffer like a dog, but let me somehow or other try everything. But the Vedic culture, the Vedic culture is that when Krishna's taking me, let me go. In Shakespeare, the cowards die many times before their death. The valiant never taste of death but once. Okay, your question.
Guru Das Prabhu, go ahead.
Guru Das.
Okay. Maybe he has to step away. Okay, we have iPhone. iPhone, go ahead. Please introduce yourself if you like. Oops, what happened?
Excuse me?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, this is Venkatesh from Indianapolis. I was
Hare
recently
Krishna.
reading Hare Krishna. Maharaj, recently reading Lilamrit, like Prabhupada asked his disciples to pray Krishna for his, you know, because their masters are not, the master have not finished the job yet. So it also depends on the desire of the devotee to serve the Lord, to ask for more time to finish his job.
Yes, that's also there. Prabhupada had just begun his mission in the West. And of course, that's also, yes, Prabhupada told the devotees that they could pray in that way to Krishna. Now, is that Prabhupada, you know, like petitioning Krishna and, you know, gathering more signatures on the petition, as it were, by having the devotees pray for him? Or is that Prabhupada teaching the devotees how to respond, how to act? I won't weigh in, but later in Prabhupada's final illness, he told the devotees that we could pray, if you so desire, please save Srila Prabhupada. Not demanding, but if you so desire. Is that all right, Venkatesh?
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I
I see there are more questions.
Yeah, there's
Go
a
ahead.
question in the chat from Ramdas,
From,
Ronald Ramdas.
I see there's one from a Kendra. There's something.
Oh, okay, that must be a private one.
Oh, let's see. I mentioned that Krishna momentarily got out of Vasudev's grasp while crossing the Jamuna. I've heard this many times, but I don't know whose commentary this appears in. It's not in Krishna book or in the Bhagavatam or Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary. I don't know either, but I've heard it. We've heard it from Srila Prabhupada, so we take it. Then, Srila Prabhupada is generally seen amongst most of ISKCON as a completely sinless being or a pure devotee of the Lord. Is there evidence or even admittance by him on such actions? Has he, in your experience, repented some of his activities since he came to America? Is there evidence that he was even subject to sins? Well, first of all, in terms of repentance, in Prabhupada's last days, his godbrothers came to see him, some of his godbrothers, including some of the godbrothers that Prabhupada had really done battle with. And Prabhupada asked forgiveness of them, that I've said so many things in the course of preaching, so I've offended you, so please forgive me. And Prabhupada, his mood was not diplomatic. He was, as far as I could see, he was just very feelingly praying to them to be forgiven for having regrettably offended them. Apart from that, we don't, is there evidence that he was subject to sins? We don't judge these things. What is that? Arche Vishnu Shiladir Gurushu Naramati, Vaishnave Jati Bhuti. The spiritual master should not be seen as an ordinary human being, Naramati. We don't, or Jati Bhuti. Normally we see, oh, this person is born in this kind of family, this person is born in that family, this person has, he's been to this university, he's been to that university, he has these qualifications, or doesn't have those qualifications, he belongs to this, he belongs to that. Or we look at his bodily features and we say, oh, he's not very good looking, or he is very good looking, or he's his eyesight is defective, or his hearing seems to be off. We judge from our material point of view. But the Vaishnava should not be subjected, especially the spiritual master, should not be subjected to that kind of calculation. Is he sinless, or how sinless was he? Did he commit some sins, no sins? Is he subject to sinful reactions? The spiritual master should be seen as Krishna's representative. Not that we calculate. Just like, what is that? Matravat Paradareshu. All other women should be seen as one's mother, other than one's wife. So that means one shouldn't calculate. Is she a good-looking mother? Is she not such a good-looking mother? Is she, no sort of mental speculation about her. No, she's a mother. And it ends there. It ends there. We don't give permission to our minds to think in any other way, because she's our mother. Machvat Padadareshu. So in the same way, where we don't look at the deity and say, is the deity nicely made, not nicely made, just like Lord Jagannath Prabhupada said, from the material calculation, he's not very, such a great artistic accomplishment. The deity is crude, doesn't even have feet, crudely fashioned. And a materialist will see Lord Jagannath that way. But a devotee doesn't subject the Jagannath deity to artistic scrutiny or evaluation. He sees this is Lord Jagannath. This is Sakshat Prajanjanandana, the personality of Godhead. And so he becomes joyful. So the spiritual master is seen as Krishna's representative. Yasya deve para bhaktir yata deve tata guru tashaite katita hirata prakashante. One who has a full faith in Krishna and equal faith in the spiritual master. To such a person, all the import of Vedic knowledge is revealed. So the question then is not doesn't come up. Did he ever commit sins? How many? No, it's just not. We're in the wrong framework. We're not in the framework where we would start calculating in that way. Is that all right?
So, Maharaj, we have Gurudas again. Hopefully his audio is fixed now. Gurudas, Prabhu, go ahead, see if it works. Gurudas, looks like we still can't hear you. Maybe you can type in your question then, because it looks like the audio is still problematic. It's not coming through.
Okay.
Yeah, looks like there's still some technical issues. Okay. In the meantime, maybe you can pass it to Sumon. Sumon, you have a question or a comment? Unmute.
Sumon. Balloon.
Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. Maharaj, maybe one reflection and one question. One, I was here reading the purport, and it's written that the banks of Ganges or Yamuna gives one a chance to remember the Lord continuously. That means, I personally know myself spending a lot of time and banks of Ganges, being born there and all, but I just cannot understand what Prabhupada means by this, that gives a chance to remember the Lord and that too continuously.
Let's see how to answer that. Especially for a trained person, the Ganga will remind us of Krishna. We'll remember that the Ganga is carrying the dust from the lotus feet of the Lord. We can always think of something else. Just like if you go to Mayapur these days, there are those buses that come from Krishnagar or wherever they come from, and they go to the bank of the Ganga and they party it up, right? They play loud Bollywood music, and they just somehow find this a nice place to forget all about Krishna, to forget all about anything spiritual, and just to make fools of themselves. So even though the Ganga is there, giving them every opportunity to remember Krishna, to remember Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the devotee will think this is the same Ganga where Lord Gauranga himself performed his pastimes. In his childhood, he teased the Brahmins here. This is where he met Lakshmi Priya. This is where he was performing so many activities. The idea is there. By seeing the Ganga, you remember Krishna, or you remember Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That's natural, but you don't have to. What is that? Matirna Krishna Parato Svatova what is
Mitho
that?
vipadyeta
Mito
grahavitanam.
vipadyeta grihavritanam. If you're grihavrita, if you've made a vow, just like it's a question of consciousness. The Parikshit Maharaj just made a vow. Let me sit at the bank of the Ganges and let me fix my mind on Krishna. But if you've made a vow, let me enjoy sense gratification. Let me get as much as I can from sex life and family happiness. Then you may go to Mayapur, you may go to Ganga, you may go to Varanasi, you may go to Puri, you may go here, you may go there, and you won't think of Krishna. You'll think of everything else because that's your determination. That's your, even so many demons, they were in the presence of Krishna, but they weren't thinking, let me surrender, let me take shelter. Of course, they somehow they were thinking of Krishna, at least unfavorably. That's better. The gross materialist, he just wants to forget about Krishna. So for those who are determined, nothing will help. For the devotee, everything will help. He sees the sun and he thinks, Prabhasmi Shashi Suryo, I'm the light of the sun. Sees the moon, I'm the light of the moon. Tastes water, he remembers Krishna says, I'm the taste of the water. Whatever he sees, that reminds him of Krishna. Even death, Mrityu Sarvaharashtam, I'm death. Everything reminds the devotee of Krishna because he's inclined to remember Krishna. The devotee goes to Vrindavan. Everything reminds him of Krishna. These are the same cool sands where Krishna was walking with his lotus feet. These are the same Kadamba trees. These are the peacocks that were crowing during Krishna's pastimes. These are the same monkeys to whom Krishna was distributing his yogurt and butter. This is the same Jamuna, the same Govardhan Hill. Everything there will remind him of Krishna. It's all conducive to remembering Krishna. But if one doesn't want to remember Krishna, if one is determined to think of sense gratification, then that's what he'll think of. Is that okay, Shuman?
Yes, Maharaj. Maharaj, one more question was that sometimes we get a kind of, okay, let me talk from my side. I get a kind of indication maybe from Paramatma that something that I'm doing may not be right, or, some slight understanding, but later give in to and do something and then later realize, oh, I got the indication, but I did not heed to it, and then I end up committing a sin. So are those kind of sins also willingly committing even after knowing all this? Because the
Yeah,
purpose that you read was really strong.
there's several thoughts that come to mind from what you've said. The first thing is that our natural inclination to act properly should be reinforced by proper training. We have an acquired tendency to act wrongly because of our association with the modes of material nature. But there's also some background of good fortune in our life, and especially if we're in the if we're in a family of devotees, either by birth or by association, we've come into devotee association. We want to be Krishna conscious. So then that, especially children who are born into devotee families, that tendency to act spiritually, to act in Krishna's service, should be strongly reinforced, because Maya is pulling the other way. Don't think of Krishna. Don't think of me. Manmana bhavamad bhakta. Don't think of Krishna. Think of me. Mam namaskuru. So Maya's on one side, Krishna's on the other side, and Mama Maya Durachaya. Maya is very, very powerful, subtle, and strong. So those who have some natural inclination to, or natural advantage should be trained, that they should get strong reinforcement so that they can, when Maya comes and says, come on, enjoy me, come on, enjoy me, they'll say, no, you're Maya. You're Maya. So that's the first thing. And we see that with Parikshit Maharaj, that Prabhupada mentions, how is it that he went to the Ganga and detached himself? Prabhupada said, among other things, that he was trained. He was trained. He knew what to do. It wasn't just, well, what should I do under these circumstances? His training was there, so he knew, now that my notice has come, let me accept this as Krishna's mercy and act accordingly. So that training is so very important. And for one who's received training or instructions, then practice is very important, because it's not training we'll receive from others, from our parents, from our teachers, but then it's up to us also to practice so that we can make serious advancement, not just depend on, well, I was born in a Brahmin family, I was born in a devotee family, Krishna consciousness comes natural to me. It doesn't come all that natural, or we wouldn't have been born in this material world. So therefore Krishna says, Mami partha vyapashritya ye pisu papayoni striya shudra tata vaisha tepi hanti paramgati. Doesn't matter, one may be lowborn, one may be a woman, a vaisha, a shudra, anything, but if he takes shelter of me, he can come back to me. Kim punar brahmana punya bhaktas bhakta rajarshiyastata. How much better it is then to be born in a family of royal kings, a Kshatriya family, or a Brahmana Punya, a pure Brahmin family. Kim Punar Brahmana Punya, Bhakta, to be born in a devotee family, Rajarshiyastata, Rajarshi family, Anityam Masukam Lokam Imam Prapya Pajashvama. Having gotten such advantages, one should not squander them or lose them. One should, with determination, take this path. Let me engage in devotional service to Krishna. Now, finally, to your question, what about the sinfulness of, we hear this little voice, but we ignore it, we do something else. We sort of know, but we do the wrong thing. So, of course, that's to be avoided. What Prabhupada specifically talks about is intentionally committing sinful activities, especially to think, well, I'm a devotee, or I'm chanting, so I can do this or that, and the sinful reaction won't affect me because Hare Krishna, Namnad balad yasya papabugi. That's more sinful. To think that, well, I can get away with it because I can just chant Hare Krishna, and the sinful reactions will be washed away. That is very much unwanted. I may sort of miss the clue. I may do something that's accidentally, almost. Prabhupada uses that term. What is that? The Pichet suduracharo pajate mam, and then one may do something even terrible, sudurachar, not just a small mistake. One may do something really abominable. But bhajate mam and anyabhak, if with absolute determination, one, or Prabhupada says, unalloyed determination, one engages in the service of Krishna, sadhureva samanta. Still he's considered a sadhu. then Kshipram Bhavati Dharma. Very quickly comes back to the right point. Not that one remembers this verse. Krishna says, well, even if he does the most sinful thing, if he's a devotee, well, all right, I'm a devotee, so let me do this sinful thing. That's condemned. And Prabhupada says for that, there's like no remedy. So we shouldn't willingly or defiantly think that let me do these things. But somehow, if by accident or by carelessness one gets caught, then all right, let me come back to the standard. Even like, what is it, to let one's mind wander while chanting is an offense. There are 10 offenses in chanting. To be inattentive while chanting, that's also offensive. And now, do we commit that offense? Yes. Then what do? Do we say, well, forget it, I'm not going to chant anymore because my chanting's offensive? No, the Goswamis say that you take shelter of the holy name, Jiva Goswami, take shelter of the holy name and go on chanting, go on chanting, go on chanting. Is that all right, Shuma? Yes? Okay. Yeah, you're muted, so, but.
We have some more questions in the chat, Maharaj. Another one from Venkatesh.
Venkatesh. Okay, let's see what it is this time. What is the solution for people like me who never had any training? You mean people like us, and practice until we came in contact with Krishna consciousness after 30 or 40 years of karmic life with so many impressions? It really becomes a challenge to not commit the sins, as Krishna says, that lust takes over. Yes, therefore best is from the very beginning to come in touch with Krishna consciousness early. That's better, and especially those who are born in devotee families, that opportunity should be very carefully protected, so that they can get the full advantage of that good fortune. But those of us who are not so fortunate, who don't come in touch with Krishna consciousness until we're 20 or 30 or 40 or still older, and who may have had a background of sinful activities, very sinful activities, exceedingly sinful activities. For us, still, it's better late than never. The Narad Muni made a hunter a devotee. How sinful was it? He was a hunter who was half killing animals and enjoying watching them suffer. But by the association of Narad Muni, Shujanti, he became purified. Kiratu Hunandra Palinda Pukasha. Any low-born person. Low-born means naturally sinful activities as a way of life. As a way of life, and all the impressions that go with it. But if one takes shelter of one who's taken shelter of Krishna, then one can be purified. Prabhu Vishnave Nama, by the power of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It really becomes a challenge to not commit sins. Lust takes over. Therefore, we have to be careful. There are so many rules and regulations. Just for example, what is that? Matra svastra duhitrava na vivikdasano bhavet balavan indriya grama vidvamsam apikarshati. One should not sit alone even with one's mother or one's daughter, one's sister, because the senses are so strong that even a learned person, vidvan, may be dragged into sinful activities by lust. So one thing is training our consciousness, always thinking of Krishna, avoiding, all being practicing, chanting, hearing. And the other thing is these protective measures. Let me never be alone with a woman other than my wife. Why? Because that's an invitation to trouble. One may say, well, no, I'm an experienced devotee, or no, it's just for Krishna service, or no, it's she's an old lady, or no, this, no, that. Prabhupada was talking with his sister in Mayapur, and you know the story, it's famous. His servant figured, well, brother and sister have things to talk about, and I've got service to do. So he left, and when he came back, Prabhupada chastised him. That why did you leave me alone with that woman? You know, his own sister, and she was what, like 70s, 80s, you know, an old lady, and a devotee also. Why did you leave me alone with that woman? So one has to be mindful of these rules and regulations, which are meant to help us. We know, just like the Alcoholics Anonymous and everything like that. They, don't like test yourself by walking by the pub, by walking by the bar, by going to a party where everyone's drinking and think, well, I can handle it. Don't go there, because you know that this tendency is there, and with so much hard labor, hard effort, you're trying to break through, or you have broken free from these things. But be careful. So our association, especially, we should be careful about. A satsanga tyag, a Vaishnavachar. We should avoid the association of materialists, asatsanga, those who are attached to women for sense enjoyment, and those who are against Krishna, or who are simply non-devotees. So that bad association should be avoided. These compromising situations, to be alone with a woman, to be even, we see sometimes people get caught because they're like working too closely with some particular woman day after day, and then it becomes, even in the material world, at the water cooler, so many things go on. The male and female workers start talking to one another, and something gets going. So we should be careful from that side, and on the other side, strong practice and taking shelter of Krishna, praying to Krishna, please let me serve you, and let me not be serving Maya. Let me always be Ami Tomar Nitya Das. I'm your servant. Please engage me. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. We're at 9 o'clock, O Madan Gopal Prabhu.
So it is. It moves very quickly. Huh? I think we can go a couple minutes. I had a comment about this very practical topic that we've been talking the last few minutes about, how to avoid getting trapped. And just a nice analogy I'd heard in one of the classes, like when we go to work, those of us who work in office, and if I go to work and I haven't had a good breakfast, then what happens by about 9:30 or 10 o'clock, I'm going to raid the vending machine. I will look for my quarters and look for some junk food. And it's inevitable. It's very difficult to not, because the body's hungry. But if I had taken some time and had a good breakfast, then at 10:30 I don't feel so uneasy. It's just natural. And then at 12:30 I'll have my regular packed lunch, and it's no problem. Natural hunger. So the reason I bring the analogy is that if the soul is also thirsting for ananda, and if I have a good breakfast of nice ananda, of chanting deeply, even if it's a few rounds, and doing some mangalarti kirtan at home, and offering some incense, and maybe reading some Bhagavatam, even just a few minutes, but that little dose of ananda carries us over to the next time when the soul becomes thirsty again. But if we neglect that in the morning, then the soul becomes, restless, and then it's inevitable we raid the vending machine of the material world and eat unhealthy, toxic things. So I think it's just a simple act of making it a point to getting our dose of spiritual ananda in the morning, even if it's just a few minutes, better than not doing it. It's just a habit that makes us much more immune to the distractions of the world. Just wanted to add that.
Thank you very much. Very nicely said.
Any other comments or questions? I think it looks like none. I hear none. I see none. So I think we can.
Tomorrow's a big day.
Yes, this weekend is just like last weekend, and we're getting lots of varieties of speakers from all over the world. So tomorrow's a big day. We have first thing in the morning, actually not first thing, but 11 a.m. We have Her Grace Vishakha Mataji, who was one of Srila Prabhupada's very early disciples, and she will be speaking on Srila Prabhupada's some stories of Srila Prabhupada and from her memoirs. That's something very wonderful. She has spoken at Towaco before, and it's been very well received. And then following that, at 8 p.m., we have His Holiness Giriraj Swami talking on the Lord's guaranteed protection from a verse in Srimad Bhagavatam. And on Sunday evening, we have Sunday evening at 6 p.m., His Holiness Radhanath Swami will be speaking on Lord Chaitanya's loving dealings in Puri with his devotees. So be sure to catch all these three. And then next week, as we continue, we'll have Monday, Wednesday, Friday, continuing in this 19th chapter of the first canto with His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami. So please put that on your calendar, and all sorts of wonderful nectar flowing for the next few days for sure. So thank you very much for joining. I just got a confirmation that the following Saturday we'll have His Holiness Satswarup Maharaj who will be speaking in the morning. So please stay tuned.
When is that?
The following 1 week from tomorrow at 11 a.m. His Holiness Satswarup Maharaj will be speaking. Yeah. So and it's a unique topic. So we're going to tell some interesting stories. So do stay tuned for that. And I'll pass it on to Nilmani Prabhu for closing words. Nilmani Prabhu, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Madan Gopal Prabhu. Thank you so much, Maharaj, again for another day of wonderful Krishna Katha, Srimad Bhagavad Katha. I don't know if Madhupati Prabhu is still on, but I just wanted to wish him happy birthday because it's his birthday today. So Madhupati Prabhu, we can all wish him happy birthday.
Oh, yeah, have him unmuted. Yeah, Madhupati Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Bolo, thank you.
Okay, I also wanted to thank all of the donors. Some of them are online who came forward because today is Sita Nomi. We had a very beautiful darshan of Sita Nomi in our temple, and it was very nicely ordained with beautiful flower garlands and so forth. Even though we could not take darshan directly, we saw Sita Devi on our phones and things like that. So it was a wonderful darshan. So I'd like to thank our devotees for honoring Sita Devi on her appearance day today. I also wanted to mention, of course, that next Wednesday, we will be observing Nashinga Chaturdasi in our temple. So we'll have a morning program where we'll be offering 108 Tulsi leaves to Lord Nashinga Dev, and we'll be reading out the names of all the devotees who have sent us their names and requested blessings. And then in the evening at 5:30, we will be having a yagya followed by Abhishekam, and then followed by some wonderful classes. At 7 o'clock, we'll be doing a class in conjunction with the Brooklyn Temple and the Bhakti Center with His Holiness Radhanath Swami, followed by a class with Jayadvaita Swami at 8 o'clock or thereabouts. So as Madan Gopal Prabhu said, we have some wonderful speakers in lineup. So please stay connected in these times and enjoy Krishna Katha. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you so much, Nilmani Prabhu. And thank you again to Purushartha Prabhu and to all the devotees who've come. I only see I get a short little
Hare
list.
Krishna Maharaj, Dandavat Pranam. Thank you, Maharaj, for the wonderful class.
Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Jan is there, Panchatattva is there, so many devotees. So thank you all. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hari Bol.
Thank you, Maharaj.